For centuries, people have whispered the same question in different languages. Why do Jewish people seem to thrive in business no matter where they are in the world? Some say it's intelligence. Others say it's education. But those who look deeper know the truth. It's neither luck nor talent. It's law. There are three ancient laws, spiritual, practical, and eternal, that explain why Jewish prosperity continues across generations. Laws so deeply woven into faith and daily life that even those who don't study them still live by them. And once you understand these principles, you begin to see that success isn't random. It's spiritual order expressed through action. When I first discovered these teachings, I realized they were not meant for one people alone. They were meant for anyone willing to live with awareness, discipline, and faith. Because these laws are not about religion, they are about resonance. Everything you see, every business, every opportunity, every closed door, responds to your frequency. And that frequency is shaped by your beliefs, your gratitude, and most of all, your words. Before we go any further, I want you to do something simple. In the comments, write down one phrase you often say about money or success. Maybe it's, "I can't afford it." Maybe it's, "Money doesn't come easily." Maybe it's, "I always get by somehow." Write it down, honestly. There's a reason for this. When you bring your hidden language into the open, you make the unconscious visible. You start to see the words that have been silently shaping your financial life. Every phrase you repeat about money becomes a command, a message that your mind and the universe take as law. Jewish wisdom teaches that words are not sounds, they are seeds. When you speak, you plant realities. Some grow into blessings, others into barriers. But the soil doesn't choose. It simply obeys the seed. So what have you been planting with your speech? Scarcity or growth? Fear or flow? In this journey, I will show you the three Jewish prosperity laws, the law of words, the law of flow, and the law of covenant, and how they intertwine to create an unbreakable structure for success. These are not abstract ideas. They are ancient technologies of the soul that govern everything from business decisions to personal peace. Once you learn them, you'll understand why some people attract opportunity without chasing it, while others work endlessly and remain stuck. It's not about effort, it's about alignment. And everything begins with the first and most sacred of these principles, the law that turns speech into substance and thought into form. The first prosperity law is known among scholars as the law of words. It is the oldest and most foundational of all spiritual laws, the principle that words create worlds. In the book of Genesis, the entire universe begins with sound. And God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. Jewish wisdom teaches that this was not poetry, it was instruction. God did not think creation into existence, He spoke it. Every time the divine spoke, reality rearranged itself to obey. This pattern did not end in the first chapter of the Bible. It continues through us. The human being is made in the image of God, which means we too possess the ability to shape reality through language. Every word is a vibration that enters the unseen and molds the seen. That is why speech is treated as sacred in Jewish culture, a contract between intention and manifestation. My grandfather used to say, "Be careful what you declare, because your words don't disappear. They build homes in your future." I didn't understand him at the time, but as I grew, I saw the truth in it. I met people who constantly said, "I'm always broke," and they were. I met others who said, "I find opportunities everywhere," and somehow they did. The world, it seems, is always listening. Jewish tradition even has a word for this creative power, Lashon Kodesh, the holy tongue. It means that every sound in Hebrew carries energetic purpose. In the same way, your personal language carries your emotional code. When you repeat phrases like "I can't," "It's too hard," or "I never get lucky," you are authoring limitation. You're building walls with words. But the opposite is also true. When you speak in gratitude, when you affirm growth, when you choose words that carry motion and faith, you open invisible gates. Jewish entrepreneurs and thinkers have practiced this law for centuries. Blessing before action, declaring outcome before evidence. There's an old rabbinic saying, A fool prays for rain after planting. The wise blesses the storm before it begins. That is the essence of this first law. You don't wait to see prosperity before you speak it. You speak it, and then it starts to form. Your voice is not an echo, it's a key. Every time you speak consciously, you turn that key in the lock of creation. But to understand how this law truly works, we need to go one step deeper, into the mystery of naming itself, the divine act that transforms invisible intention into visible reality. Because the moment you name something, you don't just describe it, you give it life. In Hebrew, the act of naming is more than identification. It is invocation. The word for name, Shem, is linked to neshama, meaning soul. To name something is to call its essence into being. That's why in the ancient texts, Adam's first task after awakening was not to build, but to name. Creation was incomplete until it was spoken into order. Jewish mysticism teaches that names carry spiritual DNA. When you call something by its true name, you align with its divine purpose. But when you misname, you distort its energy. The same principle applies to your life and business. What you call your circumstances shapes how they behave toward you. If you say, "I'm struggling," the universe arranges itself to prove you right. If you say, "I'm learning," it arranges itself to help you grow. Both statements describe the same situation. The difference lies in how you name it. One creates a wall, the other, a doorway. In the world of commerce, this law operates constantly. Jewish entrepreneurs speak blessing over what they do. They give their projects names of hope and destiny. A bakery becomes Beth Lechem, house of bread. A law firm is called Emunah, faith. A child is named not for vanity but for prophecy, carrying the echo of ancestors. Words in this tradition are not decoration, they are declaration. Modern psychology confirms what ancient wisdom has always known: the mind obeys the tongue. Studies show that affirmations and repeated positive language rewire neural pathways, changing not just how we think, but what we attract. The subconscious doesn't distinguish between truth and declaration. It simply aligns with what it hears most often. That's why in Jewish practice there's a blessing for almost everything. Before eating, before working, before sleeping, before studying. Each blessing names the moment as sacred, directing the energy of the act toward divine purpose. When I learned this, I began to pay attention to the language I used for my goals. I stopped saying, "I want," and started saying, "I am building." I stopped calling challenges problems and began calling them trainings. Slowly, life began to mirror my speech. Obstacles became teachers, delays became preparation. You see, when you name something correctly, you're not pretending it's easy, you're revealing its hidden meaning. The power of declaration isn't about denial, it's about direction. And yet, even the most perfect declaration will fade if it's not supported by the second law, the law that governs movement itself. Because prosperity doesn't only listen to words, it flows toward motion. The next law explains why abundance arrives only when energy circulates freely. The second prosperity law is called the law of flow. It is the spiritual principle that nothing divine stands still. Everything blessed must move, from the smallest coin to the greatest idea. The Hebrew word shefa describes this perfectly. It means divine abundance, but it also means flowing stream. Prosperity in Jewish understanding is not a pile to protect, it's a river to maintain. When you look at Jewish tradition, you'll notice a rhythm built around movement. Every act of earning is followed by an act of giving. Every blessing received is shared. This isn't just generosity, it's maintenance of flow. When wealth stops moving, it begins to decay. Like water trapped in a pond, it breeds scarcity and fear. The law of flow operates on both spiritual and psychological levels. Spiritually, it mirrors how creation itself behaves, constantly expanding, circulating, renewing. Psychologically, it trains the brain to associate giving with safety instead of loss. That shift changes everything. Many cultures view success as accumulation. Jewish wisdom views it as circulation. That's why tzedakah, often translated as charity, actually means justice. Giving isn't considered optional, it's an act of alignment. You give not to lose, but to keep the current moving through your life. My grandfather used to tell me that money behaves like blood. If it flows, the body thrives. If it clots, the body weakens. Holding too tightly to what you earn signals to life that you no longer trust its supply. And the moment you stop trusting the source, the flow begins to narrow. I once met a businessman who lived by this law instinctively. Every deal he closed, he would take 10% and direct it towards something that served others, not out of guilt, but out of rhythm. When I asked him why, he said, "Because I want to remind money that it's a guest, not a prisoner." He never struggled to attract opportunity. His flow was constant because his gratitude was in motion. In Hebrew numerology, the number 10 symbolizes completion and renewal, the perfect cycle. That's why tithing has mystical roots. It ensures that with every completion you make space for the next beginning. The flow never stops. Ask yourself, where have you interrupted your own current? Where have you held so tightly to control that movement has frozen? The moment you begin to release, through giving, helping, circulating, life responds. But even flow can be corrupted if it's disconnected from meaning. Motion alone isn't enough. It needs direction, covenant, and purpose. And that brings us to the third and final law, the one that decides whether abundance becomes temporary or eternal. The rhythm of generosity is the heartbeat of prosperity. The second law taught us that wealth must move, but this chapter reveals how it should move. Because not all giving creates flow. Some giving leaks energy, other giving multiplies it. The difference lies in intention. Jewish prosperity isn't built on random acts of kindness. It's built on systematic generosity, a spiritual discipline known as tzedakah. Unlike charity, which is emotional and spontaneous, tzedakah is covenantal. It's an obligation rooted in justice. You give not when you feel generous, but because the act itself maintains divine balance. Every successful Jewish household, from the poorest to the wealthiest, understands this rhythm. The cycle is simple: receive, give, renew. When profit comes, a portion is immediately redirected. It might go to a synagogue, a school, a family in need. It doesn't matter where, only that it moves. Because the moment you decide that giving can wait, stagnation begins. There's a story told by Rabbi Shlomo Carlebach about a merchant who once complained that he was too poor to give. The rabbi smiled and said, "Then give until you are rich enough to stop saying that." It sounds paradoxical, but it's profoundly true. Generosity creates the very abundance it seems to diminish. Even science echoes this. Studies from behavioral economics show that people who give regularly report higher levels of happiness, creativity, and perceived wealth, regardless of income. The brain associates generosity with power, not loss. When you give, you send a subconscious message: "I have enough to share," and that statement becomes reality. But here's what most people miss. Generosity must have structure. Emotion is fleeting. Systems endure. Jewish families create sacred habits of giving, weekly, monthly, seasonally. Children learn early that wealth circulates. This rhythm forms a lifelong belief that abundance is infinite, not fragile. In my own life, when I began giving with rhythm, not impulse, I felt the shift. Every transaction became spiritual. Every exchange was part of a living current. The fear of lack disappeared because flow had become my natural state. And here's the secret hidden beneath all this. Generosity is not only about money, it's about energy, time, presence, and kindness. When you offer encouragement, mentorship, or forgiveness, you participate in the same law of circulation. Flow is universal. Yet even the most generous heart can lose its blessing if it forgets the third law, the one that gives purpose to all others, because prosperity without covenant becomes chaos. The final law is the anchor that turns motion into meaning, and wealth into something sacred enough to last generations. The third prosperity law is the law of covenant. It is the invisible thread that ties every blessing to its purpose, every gain to its meaning. Without covenant, Even great wealth eventually crumbles, because money without moral gravity has no center. In Hebrew, the word for covenant is brit, the same root used when describing the sacred bond between God and Abraham. That covenant wasn't a contract of possession, it was a contract of purpose. God promised to bless Abraham so that he could be a blessing to others. The flow of prosperity, then, is never for one person alone. It is designed to move through you, not stop with you. This understanding is what separates prosperity from greed. Wealth, when held without covenant, becomes heavy. It isolates. But when aligned with service, it multiplies meaning. Every coin, every idea, every opportunity becomes a vessel for something divine. Jewish entrepreneurs often describe their work not as a career, but as a calling. Business is seen as a form of worship, a way to participate in creation. When you build something honest, provide value, employ others, or solve problems, you are continuing the act of divine creation begun in Genesis. That's covenant in motion. One rabbi told me, "The purpose of wealth is not comfort, it's continuation." The moment you use your resources to extend light, whether through mentorship, giving, or ethical trade, you fulfill the very reason prosperity exists. But covenant is tested most in the unseen moments. It's easy to give when everyone's watching, but the true test comes in silence, when no one is keeping score. The law of covenant asks one question: who are you when no one else is measuring? I remember a friend who built a successful company grounded in faith. When competitors tried to bribe their way into deals, he refused. He lost contracts, profits, reputation, yet he held to integrity. 2 years later, those same competitors were gone, and his company had doubled in strength. He told me quietly, "Every test of honesty is a test of alignment." That's the covenant at work. Invisible, slow, but unbreakable. It transforms profit into purpose, transaction into testimony. Without covenant, prosperity becomes noise. With covenant, even a little wealth carries eternity inside it. And yet this alignment is not without struggle. Every covenant is tested, just as Abraham's was. Every blessing will eventually ask, do you trust the source more than the outcome? Because true prosperity doesn't come when everything is easy. It comes when you learn to hold faith steady through the storm. And that's where the real test begins, when abundance demands surrender. The test of faith never arrives when you expect it. It doesn't come at the beginning of the journey, when you're still full of hunger and ambition. It comes later, when success begins to feel secure, when you believe the foundation is firm. That's when the universe asks the hardest question of all. Can you still trust the source when the flow shifts? In Jewish wisdom, tests are not punishments, they are invitations. Every test of faith is an opportunity to prove alignment, to show that you serve purpose, not comfort. The Torah repeats this pattern endlessly. Abraham leaving his homeland, Joseph rising from prison, Job standing amid loss. Prosperity without testing remains fragile. Only through surrender does it gain permanence. In Hebrew, the word for faith is bitachon. It doesn't mean blind belief. It means active trust, the courage to act as if the divine plan is already good even before you see it. Bitachon is not theory, it's behavior. It's continuing to move, to build, to bless when logic says to stop. I once met a man who embodied this perfectly. He had lost everything, a business, a home, a reputation. Yet he kept saying one phrase every single day. If God closed this door, it's because he's building me another house. Not room, but house. His conviction was contagious. Within a year, he had rebuilt stronger than before, but more importantly, freer. His peace was unshakable because it no longer depended on outcome. Faith like that isn't born from success, it's born from surrender. It's the kind of faith that sees the storm not as punishment, but as purification, a refining fire that removes fear and pride, leaving only truth. Jewish prosperity teachings emphasize this paradox. The moment you stop chasing what you fear losing, you create space for divine order to move. When you cling, you contract. When you trust, you expand. The tests will come. Markets will fall, plans will fail, doors will close. But if your foundation is covenant, your word steady, and your flow constant, nothing truly collapses. It only transforms. That's the secret hidden inside loss. Every contraction precedes expansion. The universe breathes this rhythm. Inhale, exhale, receive, release. Once you learn to trust this rhythm, the three laws of words, flow, and covenant stop being separate teachings and start merging into a single formula. Together, they form the living pattern of prosperity, creation, circulation, and consecration. And when these three movements align, something extraordinary happens. Prosperity ceases to be a goal and becomes your natural state. When the three laws begin to merge, words, flow, and covenant, something within you stabilizes. Life no longer feels random. Every event, every conversation, every exchange reveals its place in a larger rhythm. You start to see that prosperity is not a miracle, it's alignment. This alignment is the hidden formula of abundance: creation, circulation, consecration. Creation begins with words, the conscious declaration of intent. Circulation keeps the energy alive through generosity, gratitude, and movement. Consecration, the covenant, gives all of it purpose, transforming motion into meaning. The great sages used to say, "He who speaks truth, gives freely, and walks faithfully will never lack." That's not a superstition, it's physics of the soul. When your words, actions, and purpose move in the same direction, resistance dissolves. The current of life begins to carry you instead of you fighting against it. I remember when I first began to live by this formula consciously. Each morning I would set a simple ritual. First, I spoke gratitude, aloud, clear, deliberate. Second, I set one intention to give: time, help, or resources. Third, I reminded myself that everything I earned that day was not mine alone, but part of something sacred. At first, nothing seemed to change, but within weeks, my energy shifted. The anxiety I had carried about money started to fade. I felt guided, not in a mystical sense, but in a deeply practical one. I made better decisions. I attracted better people. Opportunities seemed to appear exactly when needed. This is what happens when you live in alignment. You stop chasing what's already on its way. You don't have to force results. You simply stay in rhythm. And rhythm always produces fruit. Alignment does not mean perfection. It means coherence. Even when things go wrong, they go wrong with purpose. You begin to see obstacles as part of divine choreography, not as interruptions. The formula works because it mirrors the structure of creation itself. Words initiate, let there be. Flow sustains, and it was so. Covenant completes, and God saw that it was good. Every creation follows that same three-step pattern, from businesses to relationships to personal growth. If you apply this consciously, life starts to organize itself around your faith instead of your fear. Every spoken truth becomes movement. Every act of generosity becomes multiplication. Every commitment becomes blessing. Those who practice this alignment don't chase wealth. Wealth begins to chase them. But even the most sacred formula is meaningless without proof. So let me show you what happens when real people, ordinary, imperfect, searching, put these laws into action. I once met a man named Daniel, a tailor from São Paulo who had spent 20 years stitching clothes no one remembered. When I first spoke to him, he said, "Business is slow, but it's fine." Those words carried the weight of resignation. He didn't realize he was closing the door on his own prosperity with every sigh. After hearing about the three laws, Daniel decided to test them, not as theory, but as daily practice. He began each morning by blessing his work aloud. "Thank God I'm creating." He started giving away one small garment each week to someone in need, and he promised himself that every deal he made would honor fairness over profit. Within 3 months, new clients began arriving through word of mouth. Within a year, he was designing uniforms for an entire school. He didn't chase success, he aligned with it. Then there was Miriam, a young woman in Tel Aviv who worked in finance. She told me she felt trapped in a cycle of earning and losing, working harder but never feeling secure. When she began applying the law of flow, giving a set portion of every paycheck and naming her goals instead of worrying them, something shifted. A promotion arrived, unexpected but perfectly timed. She said to me later, "It's like the energy finally started listening." And then there's Ezra, a restaurateur who had almost lost everything after a fire destroyed his shop. When I asked him how he recovered, he said quietly, "I didn't pray for money. I prayed for meaning." He rebuilt the restaurant with a new purpose, to feed people who couldn't pay once a week. 2 years later, that same act of covenant made his place one of the most beloved in the city. He told me, "The food became better because the reason became better." These are not miracles in the sense we imagine. They are the natural consequences of spiritual order. When your words align with faith, your flow with generosity, and your wealth with purpose, reality bends toward you. It must, because you are speaking the same language as creation itself. The old rabbi who mentored me once said, "He who builds from alignment doesn't rise by chance. Heaven organizes his steps." And I've seen this to be true again and again. These stories prove something simple yet profound. Prosperity isn't achieved, it's received. It's the result of tuning yourself to the frequency of divine order. And it all returns to one sacred truth, the same truth that has echoed since the dawn of creation. The words that once created the world can still recreate yours. Every journey of wisdom must end where it began, with words. Because words are the architects of destiny, and every sentence you speak still shapes the structure of your future. The 3 laws, words, flow, and covenant, are not ancient theories. They are living instruments meant to be practiced daily. So, remember this. Speak as a creator, not a victim. Let your language reflect faith, not fear. Each time you open your mouth, you are planting a seed in the soil of eternity. Speak lack, and lack grows. Speak growth, and life itself begins to expand around you. The second law reminds us that prosperity cannot stand still. Keep the river moving. Give something every time you receive. Let generosity become rhythm, not reaction. When you release freely, you prove your trust in divine abundance. And trust is the magnet that keeps blessings returning. The third law anchors it all. Covenant gives meaning to motion. Ask yourself every day, why do I want to prosper? If the answer is only survival, the blessing will fade. But if the answer is purpose, to create, to serve, to elevate, then prosperity becomes eternal. These laws are not secrets reserved for the chosen few. They are the blueprint of creation, accessible to anyone willing to live consciously. You don't have to be Jewish to walk this path. You only need to understand that the world responds to alignment. I bless you now with the same words spoken by generations before us. May the Lord bless you and guard you. May the Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord lift his countenance upon you and grant you peace. Let that peace live in your actions. Let it guide your words. Let it breathe through your work. Because peace, in Hebrew, shalom, doesn't mean quiet, it means wholeness. To prosper is to live whole, in harmony with heaven and earth. Take these laws with you, speak with intention, give with rhythm, work with purpose, and for 7 days practice them. Watch what happens. Watch how life responds when you align speech with faith, motion with gratitude, and wealth with meaning. If this teaching has awakened something in you, share it with 3 people who need light. When you pass wisdom forward, you expand its reach, and its power multiplies in you. Because in the end, prosperity is not something you chase. It's something you become. And in the next chapter of this journey, I'll reveal something even deeper. The ancient Hebrew sound said to open the gates of blessing before a single word is spoken.